All right, welcome back, YouTube, to the GoatCast podcast. I am your host, Big Nige, again joined by my dog, Ron Dog. How we doing today, Ron Dog?
Oh, just chilling like a villain again. Midweek.
So, CW wasn't able to make it with us again. I think he got caught up at a basketball game. So, no CW for this show, but we got my dog, Ron Dog, and we're going to talk about the weaknesses for the contending teams for both the East and the Western Conference. And we're going to get a little bit in on the recent coach firings of Mike Malone for the Nuggets. Taylor Jenkins was a couple weeks ago from the Grizzlies, and then we'll touch a little bit on the Mike Brown situation on his departure from Sacramento. Um, but as always, before we start the video, make sure you like the video, comment down below your team's either your favorite team or whatever team's biggest weakness you think of out east or out west, and who you got winning it all this year. So to start, we're going to start out east. We're going to go ahead and get the bums out the way. So we're going to go ahead and let's talk about Atlanta real quick. Just a quick blip on Atlanta. Obviously, no one's expecting them to do anything. After they lost Jalen Johnson, you trade DeAndre Hunter for Karis LeVert and Gorgeous Niang.
Yeah.
So for me, I think their biggest weakness is again injuries. You lose one of your Jalen Johnson, who's was in my running for MIP. That's almost a
Mhm.
20 and 10 guy in his sleep.
Yeah.
You lose him, and you lose pretty much any chance of real playoff a miracle run. I mean, Ricochet is cool, Onyeka Kongwu, and obviously we understand the greatness of Trey Young, but they're a little thin. So for me, they're just not talented enough with all the injuries that's riddled this team, and they'd have no chance of competing in the Eastern Conference. You have anything else to add on that? I mean, it's pretty simple, honestly.
Yeah. Their defense is probably one of the worst as well because they're mainly an offensive team, but their offense isn't, as good since the trades. So their offense can't cover up their lack of defense no more, really. It can. It can against teams who are under the top 10 in the East and West. That's about it.
Yeah, and you can't really hide Trey Young with this personnel on the roster right now.
Uh,
So that'd be something for sure as well.
yeah.
But going past Atlanta, we can go ahead and go to Orlando. And I mean, again, very simple for me. I mean, they just can't score.
Um,
No matter who you put them up against, albeit they always give Cleveland a nice little scare.
yeah.
But when it just comes down to it, they just suck offensively. Like they're just a terrible shooting team.
Yeah.
They don't really score very well in the half court. They are a big team, but
Yeah.
again, just again, not good enough to compete with this version of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Albeit, I don't think Cleveland would sweep them if they played. I think they could get a game, maybe two, from
Yeah.
Paulo and France, but that's about it. You got anything for Orlando?
The only thing that I gotta say about Orlando, of course, their main scorers are Pablo and Franz, and from what I've seen this year, they've had a lot of big games that they could have closed out to get them in a higher position what they are, but just last second shots they falter on, cannot get it done in the clutch. That's about it.
And it was crazy because KCP joined this team to be like that 3 and D guy, and he he can't really shoot this year. So
Mm.
I thought he'd be better.
Well, hey man, once he had the LeBron effect, left Lakers and went to the Nuggets, that's whenever he had that shooting boost.
I mean, yeah, but like after he left the Nuggets, after he left Jokic, that kind of playmaking, he hasn't really.
He
And
can't
maybe
get as
they,
open, I guess, with the Magic as he could with the Nuggets
because I mean,
because Jokic demands so much attention.
that's true, and I don't think Orlando is like that good, like playmaking wise. Like I think they definitely could benefit from a better playmaker to facilitate easier shots for Paulo and France, and even a KCP, getting him those open looks and those touches. But they
Hmm.
just don't have the personnel. So I'm gonna let you start with the Pistons. You kind of
Okay.
alluded to this on the last video,
Hmm.
but what do you think they're one of their biggest weaknesses going into the playoffs?
Well, to me, they got two major ones. One, of course, lack of experience. we all know that they haven't been in a playoff series and God knows how long. So waiting to see what happens there. And then second of all, it's just the their defense is good, but the lack of offense is. If Cade's not scoring big buckets, their offense is a little stagnant. They they need their second and third option to do a little bit more. They need that players off the bench to contribute just a little bit more to give Cade that cushion to still do great like he is, but also to have that help to keep a lead once they get it.
Yeah, I pretty much echo the same things. They just
Yeah.
don't have much shot creation outside of Cade, and I think if he can get targeted in a postseason matchup, like if they key in on him, I don't really trust the other guys, the Malik Beasleys, you know, Jalen Duran, Tobias Harris. I definitely don't trust him in the postseason setting. So you got those two things coming together. I think the biggest victory for them is making the playoffs, but outside of that, not much of an expectation to do anything else because they just have a lot of flaws outside of Cade Cunningham.
Okay.
Next, we're going to go out to the Milwaukee Bucks. I'll go ahead and
Okay.
start with the Bucks. So obviously the news about Dame Lillard. Um, I don't anticipate him coming back for this postseason, so it's another cursed run for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah.
Um, moving past from that, they don't really have a definitive second option. I think Giannis has been amazing, like the Greek point god. I think in his last 5 games, he's been averaging a triple double. I think
Yeah.
he was Eastern Conference Player of the Week because of it, and he's been sensational. But when it comes to a postseason, I'm not worried about Giannis. Kuzma is shooting like 29% from the 3-point line. Is he going to be this bad shooting the ball? God, I hope not. But that's a problem. If Kuzma is not going to be able to hit those shots, that wall is coming
Yeah.
because Kevin Porter Jr. solid, not a second option. We don't even know what Bobby Portis is going to look like.
Yeah.
Got big slow Brooke Lopez, great dude. Just again, he's getting up there in age. So, and I know the Gary Trent Juniors of the world as well. Like again, can we trust these guys in a postseason setting? I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. But what are you thinking about the Bucks?
So again, Giannis been playing great. After Jokic had his 30-20-20 game, Giannis was literally one rebound off from having a better one than he did. So yeah, Giannis has been going crazy. Sucks that Dame went down because I definitely was ready to see them this year in the playoffs. I was ready to see what was going to happen because both of them carried the load for that team this entire season. But yeah, offensive deficiencies, that's the main thing for him right now. Not being able to score consistently. Giannis, he can score, but he's only really an inside to close mid-range type of scorer. That's the only scoring that he really wants to do. And Giannis can demand a lot of attention, of course, but I don't know if his guys are knockdown shooters for him, like most of other teams' guys. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there.
It's also bad that Milwaukee's a piss poor perimeter defensive team. They still have very solid interior defense with Brooke Lopez and Giannis down there, but in the perimeter they get scorched. And without
Yeah.
having a point of attack defender, it really shows. Like they miss Drew Holiday's impact on the perimeter. Ever since he's been gone, they've lacked that kind of defensive toughness that would, help them capture that championship against the Phoenix Suns a few seasons ago. So, no perimeter defense,
hmm
and without any second option for shot creation, it doesn't look good for the Bucks.
I
Next, we're
mean,
gonna. Oh, go ahead.
I wish they still had Pat Bev. Pat Bev plays some good perimeter defense. Even having Pat Bev to guard the point would be decent. It's better than what they got going on right now.
Yeah, I just hope that Kuzma would have been able to just be that guy because he's shown in flashes of his career that he could be I wouldn't say a consistent second option, but he can come along like he did for the Lakers in the bubble, hit some big shots, play
Yeah.
some pretty solid defense. He can rebound the ball as well.
Mhm.
But I'm just not seeing that kind of production with the Bucks. Like his shot is just falling off a cliff. So
Yeah.
if that's going to continue, that's going to be a very big problem for them because again, that that lane's going to get tighter and tighter with the 3 point
Mhm.
shooters not being able to hit those shots consistently.
I
Um,
mean, the only thing that I can say in Kuzma's defense is that, he came from a poor team to now this team who's decent, but he has to get used to playing with winning basketball. That's the only thing that's playing against him right now. He's not used to playing winning basketball.
yeah, you would think that time with the Lakers had taught him something, but poo pooing around in Washington is definitely shown.
Yeah.
So next, we're going to go to Indiana. Um, I'll go ahead and start with Indiana. I think one of their biggest weaknesses is they're pretty good at everything, but they're not elite at anything. Um, and that's just mainly because, again, we're talking about personnel. They can hit the three, but they can be inconsistent at times. And it's also Tyrese Halliburton. This team goes as far as he takes them. Yes,
Yeah.
Pascal Siakam was amazing last year, but if this team is going to ascend to the next level, they need the Tyrese Halliburton that showed up for home games, but they also need him to show up for road games as well,
Yeah.
because that was his biggest thing was he would play phenomenal at home, but when
Hmm.
he got on the road, he was a little shaky. And if they're
Hmm.
going to do anything this year, he has to be Tyrese Halliburton that we all know and love on the road. We need
Yeah.
consistent play from him, and we need them to be better on the glass, and we need those other guys, the Nimhards and Siakam, Miles Turner, Shepard, all them boys. We need them to contribute consistently so that they can be the difference maker in the potential series against like maybe the Bucks, where that depth could be the reason why they would overcome a team like the Bucks because they don't have that depth.
Yeah.
But all those other things need to fall into place for the Pacers to be a contender this year.
Hmm. And then also hitting up on the PG for the Pacers. He's a good passer. He gets his guys open, but what would also help their team hit that next level is, pick and roll. If he could hit that three off the pick and roll or like get the isolation and hit a couple of key shots, that would force them to have to go off of someone a little bit more so then he can do that good passing he usually does and help his teammates set up in good positions.
I think his aggression level also is something that like holds him back because I also think when he's such a good passer that he can overpass. He can try
Yeah.
to get the other guys involved too much to the detriment of his game. So when it comes down to the fourth quarter, he doesn't got it going like he should have
Hmm.
because he's looking for Siakam, he's looking for Turner, he's looking for all these other guys instead of himself.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to look at too for the
He,
Pacers.
he's just not a aggressive point guard. He's conservative.
So now we're getting a little bit higher up there on the
Oh yeah, we
in the
getting we
East.
getting we are getting into the nitty gritty teams now.
What you got for the Knicks, man?
All right, so the Knicks, you know, last night was Jalen's first game back. He looked good. I will say the only bad things I say about the Knicks, of course, their coach plays the starters way too much, which gets them tired and more prone to getting hurt. Number one. And two, like, I just think, against Boston and Cleveland, they have moments where they could take over a game against them, but their shot selection is terrible. They make an easy shot so much harder. No, 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 I'm serious because like their third game against Boston this year, I was watching it at home, right? And then like I seen OG go in. Chris is sitting down low, waiting for him. He could have just stopped and shot the midi because Chris ain't gonna jump out up there. No, he wants to drive in close and get his stuff swatted. I was like, really? And then like same thing about Cat. He wants to try to drive in. Cat, if you don't step back there and shoot that three ball like you did with the Wolves, and burn some people. Like, come on, you are a shooting big. You quote unquote said you are the best shooting big in today's game, right? Okay, well, show us. Burn that thing from three. Come on now.
I definitely agree. They definitely struggle against the top teams out east, albeit those games are competitive. It's not like they're just getting blown out the water. They don't match up very well with Boston, just because I think Boston's a better version of them, like bigger wings, stronger wings, better shooting, better decision making, the whole 9 yards. But aside from them getting scorched by the top teams, I'm pretty sure they're like 0-9 or 0-10 against the top teams.
In the East,
So
yeah, yeah,
and then they don't have any depth. Again, you're very top heavy. You play your starters, absorb an amount of minutes. Hey, I understand that's Tibbs' philosophy, and a lot of players aren't really going to complain about playing more. They complain about playing less. But when it comes to this team, that's going to be a problem because you don't really have a replacement for an OG, for a Mikal Bridges, and definitely not for a Jalen Brunson. So
yeah.
again, that lack of depth is going to hurt them. They don't have any rim protection. Like as great as Cat is, I love him, man. He ain't scaring nobody from getting to that rim. Mitchell
Nah.
Robinson can deter shots, but he cannot stay on the floor long enough to deter those shots consistently. So they do
Hmm.
not have rim protection. And lastly, they do not have shot creation outside of Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
Watching that game against the Celtics, it is like a night and day offense. When you have Jalen Brunson for a team like Boston and you don't have him, the offense looks completely different,
Hmm.
right?
I
They
mean,
don't have any guy to shake things up
hmm
other than Jalen Brunson.
that. I mean, just think, Jalen's first game back last night against Boston, lost by two in overtime. First game back, and he's having one of the top teams sweat.
Hmm.
I mean, poor Zingas had to drop 35. Tatum had to drop 34 just to win by two. A lot of their top guys had to score that game to keep the Knicks. So the Knicks, they have the right recipe. They just ain't cooking it the right way.
Yeah, they might need to shovel some ingredients around. I don't know,
Yeah,
but or add more ingredients to the recipe so they can have some
yeah,
backups.
yeah.
But speaking of the team that we just talked about, the Boston
Hmm.
Celtics, um, what do you got for the Celtics? What's their biggest weaknesses going
Eh,
into the playoffs?
cockiness. It's themselves. It's themselves. It
Yeah.
is. Besides that, they are good all around. I hate to say, hopefully five don't see this, but Boston could win it again. They could. They could if it keeps going like the way it is. As much as we don't like to give them praise, they are great. They are the modern team that people want to beat because they are tip top. They might not be tip top in standings, but during the playoffs since last year, that's the team you want to take down. You take them down, you have a trip to the finals.
C
Oh,
Dub. Oh, he
What's up?
came
What's up?
through.
what's up,
What's
bro?
up?
Why don't you ask Unc then about what
What's
we're
going
talking
on?
about?
So what do you got, CW? Gonna put you on the spot. The
Uh oh.
biggest weaknesses for the Celtics. We've gotten through most of the Eastern Conference, but right now we're on the Celtics. Biggest weakness going into
Celtics.
playoffs.
I think the only weakness is they like to shoot threes too much sometimes. So I think,
Cockiness.
yeah, I think if they get 3 point happy, sometimes Jason Tatum, both him and Brown get 3 point happy, and they can shoot you out the game. But other than that, they stack up pretty much very well to all teams, to anybody in the playoffs right now. So they really don't have a ton of weaknesses, but they just can't fall in love with the three.
And I echo the same sentiments. I will say they are kind of slow at making adjustments. And what I mean by that is like how you guys mentioned the 3 point shooting. If it's not falling, they take a little bit longer than most teams to adjust, to switch their point of attack. They hunt mismatch matchups, which is fine. You have big wings, you got Tatum, Brown. You can hunt a team like Cleveland. But when it comes to those matchups, those mismatches not working out, again, they take a while to make that adjustment to stop going to a Jalen Brown post up, to stop going to a Jason Tatum mid-range pull up in somebody's face. Like again, it's the adjustment period and the time it takes can put you in the hole if you're Boston because you're taking longer to make the necessary adjustments. The other thing is Porzingis. Are you going to be on the floor healthy for a consistent stretch? Can we count on you through this playoffs, through this postseason? I don't think so. His health is always a concern, and that means more load on old Godfather Al Horford. And he's been amazing, and
He
he
can still
keeps
get it done,
defying the
though.
odds. But at some point, Father Time is going to kick in, and you don't want to have a situation where you lose him and Porzingis, so you're left with Luke Cornett and I can't pronounce the other guy's name, Missy something, big dude. But those are my
They never
main
play
things
him.
for the Celtics. So now we're going to go off to Cleveland, top team out east. We're going to start with – actually, I'll start for this one, actually. So for me, I think the biggest concerns for Cleveland, you got to talk about the small backcourt. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. Darius Garland is very important for this team. He has to be on the floor. So if you're a team like Boston, even a lesser team like Orlando, you can hunt those small matchups and get good offense out of it. So that's something you have to watch out for. Yes, they can scheme. Yes, they can zone up and make it where Garland and Donovan Mitchell can be hidden to a certain degree. But again, they can be exploited elsewhere. Also, those bench players, they look amazing in the regular season. What about the postseason? Can I count on Okoro, Ty Jerome? They just brought DeAndre Hunter off the bench, who was starting, but then he's been on the bench these past few games. Is he going to bring it like he brought in Atlanta? Strus, he's been starting. Can he give you anything like he did in Miami? I don't know, but those other guys are going to be a big component of can this team, take it to Boston and even potentially not picking them, but potentially take Boston out. Those other guys, I don't trust them. For me to take Cleveland seriously, those other guys have to show up consistently. And then the last part is Mobley's three-point shot. That being a crux on them where like teams can just load up because you don't have to worry too much about it. He's shooting it at a bit higher volume, still the same percentage from last year at 37%. But he basically more than doubled his volume. So he is shooting more at still a high clip. But again, are you gonna trust that in the postseason? If I'm the defense, am I gonna sneeze at Evan Mobley 3? I don't think so. So is that shot going to deter his other attributes for this team? So a combination of those things, I think, could be the difference maker for a team like Cleveland. So what do you got, Ron Dog?
So, like you said, Darius Garland, very key piece for them. And then yes, the weakness, since they got two small guards up top, pick and rolls against other teams where they have to go down low to maybe try to guard a big, it's bad, and then have their bigs trying to guard a skill player outside who's gonna try a quick move to get space to shoot. Yes, that's bad. But the thing is, if they can get Darius and Donovan going early and keep them high and consistent, teams are going to have trouble keeping up with them. So we have to just see what happens because, I think Cleveland, since they've had Mitchell and Garland, I don't think they've made it past the second round, right? They haven't made it past it, right? So,
Nope.
so even though they're one of the favorites to come out the East, they still haven't been tested in to get past that second round yet. We have to wait and see what happens there. And then Mobley's 3-point shot you're talking about, yes, but I think if he misses a couple, he's not going to keep trying to shoot threes. I think he's going to step into the mid range and hit a couple of 2-pointers to keep it going for him. And then with that, that's going to open up to him to dish it to Mitchell, go and inside because you can't just stand there with Mitchell driving in. He'll put you on the floor too.
So what do you got, CW? What are your thoughts?
Biggest thing is consistency. They have to be consistent. They can't go out there and definitely they can't go out there and let it get behind. against a lot of these Eastern Conference teams because these are good teams, like you say, the small backcourt. They're going to hunt those guys. If it's the Celtics, they're going to hunt them. Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Derek White, they're going to hunt those guys and try to get them, or of course do a pick and roll and try to get them on Porzingis or somebody like that. So that's something they have to be aware of, and I'm sure they're going to be prepared for things of that nature. I just got to see them put it together consistently. I don't want to put them in those. I can't remember what year it was, but those number one Atlanta Hawks with Paul Millsap, Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, where they just look like a phenomenal team all season, regular season, got to the playoffs, look like a YMCA team. So you don't want to do that. And this Eastern Conference, I think, is, I'm not going to say it's wide open, but it's Boston. And then I don't know. I mean, some of these teams are good. I think, because I wasn't here for your Pacers talk and these other teams, but some of these teams are good enough to get by, a Cleveland team. You got Detroit. You got these other teams. I don't think there's I think the parity is pretty good out east. So I think Cleveland has to come in ready to smack people in the mouth early, and they got to just get their will, force their will on teams. They can't let up, and I think that's what that's what they need to do. They don't want to get into back and forth games with none of these teams. They can be consistent, but they can be inconsistent, and we've seen that in the regular season, and we've seen that in the playoffs last season. They could light it up, and then they could just go completely cold. And if they do that, some of these teams can get them out of there quick. So they're just going to have to be consistent. That's my biggest thing. And like you said, with the smaller backcourt, they're going to have to scheme a little better to make sure they're able to guard some of these teams. So, but if I'm gonna give my percent, how far I think they're going to go, I'm 75% they can get to the conference finals. That's not too high, but I got to see how things play out. But I think they'll have a tough time.
Yeah,
as good as they are in regular season, I think they're going to have a tough time.
Because people want to see that conference finals, Boston versus Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean it's must watch, but
part of me really wants them to do it, but I don't know, man. I have to go back and look at the standings, but like Cleveland obviously has been really good, but like something's telling me that they might just not make it.
Yeah,
and I don't know what it is. I mean, you got a lot of nice pieces. They're well coached, but I don't know.
They're not battle tested.
Yeah,
they're not battle tested, but like if they and me and Ron had talked about the whole KD sweepstakes. If you imagine Kevin Durant getting dropped onto this team, I think everybody would have Cleveland as like the undisputed favorites, or at least the best chance of somebody knocking Boston off.
Yeah.
But if you look at everybody else, it's like Garland, Mitchell, yeah, that's cool. Mobley, Allen, that's cool. DeAndre Hunter getting them, obviously amazing regular season, but postseason, I don't know, man. I still think they could be had, personally.
Yeah,
I do too.
I also gave Nigel this hot take. I think if someone beats the Celtics during the postseason, I think they're going to the finals. Whoever beats
Cleveland?
Boston is going to the finals.
Whoever beats Boston?
Yeah.
All right.
Who
It depends on who beats them in my case.
Because Boston is the only battle-tested team in the East.
That's true.
It's the only one.
I just don't see nobody that
don't
can.
sleep on the Pacers. Don't sleep on the Pacers. I think
now that's my sleeper team. Yeah, that's my.
he can mess with you.
Unless Tyrese becomes more aggressive, I'm sleeping on him.
Okay. Well,
their biggest issue to me is they're not the best half court playing team on offense. They kind of like to get out and run. If a team slow them down, I think they're pretty much fodder. So, but I mean, a lot of those Eastern teams like to run too. So,
just like Nigel was talking about them, is that sometimes they like to overpass too early.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fodder, let's go ahead and jump out west to a team that we both know. Me and CW have talked about this team a little bit, but they got the man of the hour,
I've
Julius
heard you
Randle.
talk about this team too much.
And let me just say this. Just go ahead and get my shot off real quick. All right. They are a solid team. They are a team that does deserve your respect. And they can still play defense with the best of them at times. But the biggest weakness for this team, surprise, surprise, Julius Randle. And I'm not saying it on the sense that he is just this god awful
You got
basketball player.
BW going.
Let me
going already. You
let
got
me
him going
finish.
already.
It depends on what version of Julius Randle you're going to get. Because if you ask any basketball fan, especially any Knicks fan of recent history, what version of Julius Randle are you going to get? There are times when he looks absolutely amazing, even playing a little bit of defense, hitting his shots and making good decisions with the basketball. But far too many times have we seen a bad Julius Randle. I'm not saying he's bad every game, but for the majority of the series, he underperforms. If he can do what he's been doing in the regular season, hey, you got me. Minnesota can definitely scare some teams out west. But I've seen too much of a sample size to ignore the fact that he, like somebody else on this list that we're going to talk about, is a playoff dropper. So for me, Randall is their biggest issue, and that's it.
All right, so I'm gonna hit up on the Randall thing real quick. You have some valid points, a little bit, but I will say I think it was towards last month that they said at a certain point the Wolves were 13-0 with Randall playing.
Mhm.
So I think the Wolves just aren't used to the four guy being able to dribble as good as Randall, being able to ISO and stuff. Because whenever they had Cat with Rudy Gobert down there last year, went to the conference finals for the West. Cat wasn't really a dribbler, Cat was pick and roll or pick and pop out. So they aren't used to being able to see him be able to handle the ball. And then I think their biggest thing, at times their offense isn't consistent, and the same goes with their defense. They have quote unquote, the guy who gets defensive player of the year, but he gets cooked too much. Because we dang well know Wemby should have got that one last year.
No argument
Facts.
here.
Facts.
What you got, C-Dub?
The anti-Julius Randle. It always. I mean, what has Julius Randle done to you? Is what we ask, because some happen between you guys where he gets the hate from you like that. But in this case, I'm slightly on your side here because I thought Cat was like the perfect fit for that Minnesota offense because, like Ron said, he's more of a pick and roll, pick and pop. He wasn't going to do a lot of dribbling. He was pretty decisive when he got the ball for the most part. Even though it could shoot you out of game sometimes, but he was decisive when he got the ball. Julius Randle, he can dribble until the last second, and then he'll try to put up a shot, or he'll try to make the quick pass, and it's not to the right person, or he takes a lot of time. Sometimes not all the time, but sometimes he takes a lot of time off the clock, on their possessions, and they can't have that. They're not the best shooting team. They're the guys that they're trying to get the ball to aren't the best, scorers in the world right now. So, you got to make decisive passes and handle your time properly. So that is where he hurts them in some cases. But I think they're scrappy enough to where they're going to be a team that'll be tough to out. I don't think they're going to be world beaters. I don't think they're a team that, is going to be scaring anybody too much, but they're going to be a tough out. And I think part of that reason is also Julius Randle, because he can light it up if he needs to. And if they give him the green light, he can light it up. No, there ain't no side eyes. He can light it up if given the opportunity, but this is Ant-Man's team, so he needs to run. Everything needs to run through him. So I don't know if they'll mesh well in that scenario.
Yeah, Julius is averaging almost 27 a game. So yeah,
Mhm.
but yeah, no,
He's
they
working
definitely
well.
have to. They have to definitely run that through Ant because
Yeah.
Ant's their first option. He's their
Mhm.
primary ball handler. It's just like last year, people start to double him, and then his teammates around him can't really score like he could.
Mhm.
It's the only problem.
I will mention that again, if he is doing all world things, I'll be the first one to say, "Hey, I was wrong about Mr. Randall in the
CW gonna call
Timberwolves,"
you out instantly.
and I'll be ready for it.
You
But
do
until I'm
pride
proven
picks.
wrong, hey, especially his high volume 3-point shooting, where he takes high volume shots and don't make a high volume of them. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and move over to the Memphis Grizzlies, another team who's been kind of up and
That's the
down.
grenader over there.
um, so for me, I think they turn the ball over way too much,
There
and
you
they give
go.
up a lot of offensive rebounds.
There you go.
If you're going to go deep in the postseason, you cannot turn the ball over like they do, and they do it in such horrible fashion. It just inexcusable turnovers. I mean, this team really isn't. I mean, it's semi young. Like they have some young depth pieces, but again, they got veteran players like Desmond Bain, Jared Jackson Jr. They got players who've been around each other long enough to you have a core that should be able to, execute down the stretch a little bit better. And I just think they're a little too loose with the basketball for my
Mhm.
liking. And Ja Morant just doesn't look the same electrifying dynamo kind of guy who he was prior to all the, gun stuff. But you know, that's just for me personally. Too many turnovers and just giving up too many offensive rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, they have the personnel to be a good rebounding team, but
Mhm.
for whatever reason they just ain't doing it for him. Zach Edey, he is a
Yep.
good rebounder. They have to just they have to really play him, start him at the five, and have Jared Jackson start at the four. That's
Mhm.
what they need to do. And then like some games, Zach Edey will have to come off the bench because there's a lot of mobile centers once you start playing them top teams in the West. But besides that, they have to start him. Turnovers, loose with the ball, 100%. I think Josh is not demanding a bunch of attention like he used to. People aren't worried about him shooting threes a whole lot no
Mhm.
more because they all know he just wants to go in and try to clip somebody. He,
Mhm.
Bane, he is a great 3-point shooter for him, but he's just not getting a ton of looks
Yeah.
like he should
Yes.
because the attention that Jaw creates driving in, that definitely should leave Bane open because someone's going to lead Bane to help so that Jaw doesn't dunk on somebody. Jaw just has to have that IQ, once he sees his man leave off, throw it over to him,
Mhm.
let him hit a couple, and then they aren't going to help off of him no more.
Yeah, y'all hit the nail on the head. Pretty much they have the pieces. It's just they don't produce, and turn the ball over like they do is just a recipe to be a first round fodder. If you want to talk about fodder, that's what they will be if they turn the ball over like they're prone to do. Like you said, yeah, Ja. I don't know what's going on, but Ja, I don't know if I don't think he's lost a step, but he's just not. He's not what he was. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's he's getting a little older or maybe he's overthinking some things. I'm not sure, but he's not quite what I expected him to be once he came back fully healthy. And they go at where Ja goes, even though Jaren Jackson has probably been their most consistent player this season. But their team that goes where Ja goes, and I just don't think Ja's heart is in it. I think they need, maybe they need a Mike Malone. I don't know if you guys touched on that, but maybe they need
No,
somebody
no, no,
hard
no.
nosed that's going to really get into Ja and make him work the way he should be working and get him, you know, give him some tough love. He needs that. He needs a Pop. He needs a Mike Malone. He needs one of those tough coaches to really, I think, to get the best out of him. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're seeing the best Ja. That's just
No.
my opinion.
Best job was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I'll touch on, Jaren Jackson Jr., as good as a defensive player as he is, he fouls too much. And he gets in foul trouble more than you would like somebody who's that important to your ball club, especially on the defensive end. He gets foul baited too much. And since we did, the Taylor Jenkins, him departing, a few games before the postseason, just like Mike Malone. So now you don't have that experience, that a battle tested coach who's been in the trenches with you. Now it's on to the assistant coach. What does that look like matchup wise? Can you get out coached now more so than you would have with Jenkins? So another thing to look at for them. But yeah, they foul a lot, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is a big reason why they foul a lot.
Yeah, and then whenever Jaren goes out, Gigi Jackson comes in, but he's just not the defender that Jared is. He's not the defender.
Speaking of a defender and potential DPOY candidate, let's go out to the Warriors, man. I'm going to let CW start this one. What you got for the Warriors?
The Warriors have the same problem they've had for many, many years. They're undersized. And with the makeup of the rest of the West, that's not the best. That's not the best thing to not have is size. And nowadays we're going to see what Jimmy Butler does. He's been, I think, a good addition to this Warrior team. I want to see how he performs in the playoffs. And we know playoff Jimmy Butler he goes from a perennial all-star to Michael Jordan, overnight. So we'll see what happens. But this is Steph's team, and the biggest thing, we've seen Steph a little more human this season, where he'll light you up he'll go for 50 one night, and then the next night he's going for 3. The next night he's going for 2. Teams are kind of figuring out Steph. So with that, where's your offensive punch going to come from with the Golden State Warriors? Is it just going to be Jimmy? Are you going to trust in Kuminga and these guys? Are you going to let Draymond shoot the backpack shot, a couple times out there? Those are going to be issues for them. I think they're hovering around playing the Lakers, I think, in the first round, which would be an extremely tough matchup. We saw them beat them the other night, but that's a lot of firepower for them to have to deal with, especially in the first round. So I'm just interested to see how Jimmy Butler's game translates to the Warriors come, the first round, come the playoff time, because we know he takes it to another level. Can he get the other guys to do the same? I think him and Draymond are going to be good motivators for them, but, have teams figure Steph out. Is Steph, going to have a tough time? So I think, they're going to have to play almost perfect basketball. That's just my opinion.
What you got, Ron?
So just to touch up, weakness.
Yeah, the team without Curry scoring has a very bad time trying to score. It is. They have to take multiple shots just to hit a couple sometimes. And I think it's not more of they figured out Steph. It's just Steph doesn't have them killers around him no more. He ain't got people to take their eye off of, because back then, whenever he at least had Clay with them and Poole, he could run around screens. He could do his 360, them twirling around to get open and stuff, and be good. But now the only killer they see out there is Steph. They are gonna let that rookie shooting guard shoot the 3. They're gonna force Jimmy to shoot the 3. They are gonna force Draymond to shoot 3, because they could have a good game shooting, but is it going to be consistent throughout a series? I don't think so. And as much defense as Jimmy and Draymond got, even if they had to switch, they could stop a big down low sometimes, but consistently a taller big is going to baby them, and it's going to be bad.
I echo the same sentiments. Definitely one of the big concerns is rim protection. Who's going to be down there to deter anything? Um, Obviously, you guys touched on their lack of size. Rotations. Steve Kerr in these damn rotations, man. I gotta say something because it's one of the most frustrating things to watch. You play all these people, but you're sitting down like Steph Curry for pivotal moments in the fourth quarter where he should be on the floor, doing what he does. Um, so I'm curious, and you got people who are killing, like Pajimski has been killing. Moody's been playing very good. GP2, Buddy Hield at points has been playing really good. What does that playoff rotation look like? Because as y'all know, the playoff rotation things get shrunk. So
It's small.
does
Yeah.
that mean Pajimski isn't going to get those minutes? Is Hield going to get those minutes? I mean, I doubt Hield will even touch the floor as a piss poor defensive player as he is. What is dang, I forgot his name already. Oh, Kuminga. What does Kuminga look like? He's been back from injury. He's looked okay, but I think a lot of Warriors fans kind of pictured him as like the next guy up. Like Pajimski's definitely kind of taking the reins back as that like third consistent guy. But I think their ceiling's a bit higher with Kuminga. Again, another person who can put pressure on the rim, can step out and hit the long ball at times. Definitely not a crazy three-point shooter, but I think a dynamic of Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy to be specific, and then another combo wing like a Kuminga could really elevate this team, could put pressure on the rim against a team like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Rockets. Those are the kind of things that you want. And again, the others, Podge, Hill, GP2, Moody, Post, are those guys going to show up in key moments? We don't need them to show up games 1 through 7 if it goes that far. We just need you to show up 2 or 3 games so that Steph Curry and playoff Jimmy can take you home the rest. So those kinds are my things for the Warriors. There's a lot to unpack, of course, but I think those things are definitely things you need to watch out for the Warriors. Now let's pivot to my boy Ron Dogg's team, or not really his team no more, but his favorite player's team, the Claw, man. What do you got for the Clippers?
Hey, man, Clippers have been playing great. They've been playing great. First of all, the pick and roll duo with Harden and Big Zoo has been crazy this year. I don't care what no one says. Big Zoo deserves most improved player. I don't care what nobody says. He's been going absolutely insane.
If you had him on the fantasy league, he was killing it. Trust me.
Yeah. And then, since Kawhi's came back, no one has had answers for him. People have also been saying he looks even more shiftier since he came back from injury. So along with the pick and roll, and then you got Kawhi ISO in the mid range. It's a tough team, and then they are a good defensive team. Even though James Harden's not known for defense, he'll push them towards the defensive players to help get the stop. And then,
good.
Yeah, and then Norman Powell still playing good, even though he don't get to start sometimes. He's still being that key shooter for him. James Harden loves to hit him too. They just have an overall team, and you do not want to see them. I don't care what team in the West. It could be OKC, Lakers, whoever. You do not want to see the Clippers first round.
I mean, I have to say absolutely. I mean, and everybody talking about Austin Reeves, the Clippers might have the best third option in this league, but you can look puzzled. But I mean, Norman Powell was should have been an All-Star. Was he all?
He should have been. Before Kawhi came back, he was getting like 24 a game.
Yeah, so he's one of the best third options in the league.
Look at that Laker hater just shaking his head.
I mean, we'll talk about those boys in a little while, but yeah, I mean, really, the biggest weakness for them will their stars show up? Because so often the Clippers will look great in the regular season. We would think, oh, this is not a team you want to see in the playoffs. Get to the playoffs, everybody's hurt. James Harden reverts back to Rockets playoff James Harden, and you're just left wondering, well, how can we rebuild this team? And then you bring them all back, same results. They'll be great for a while, and then they'll fizzle out. So they just got to be consistent. They have to be healthy. Kawhi looks healthy. For the first time in a long time, he looks like he's good going into the playoffs. Now, too many times we've seen game one of playoffs. Something, he stretches something and something gets torn. So let's hope that this doesn't happen again. But if they're healthy, like you said, like Ron said, none of those teams want to see him. OKC, Lakers, Houston, whoever, they do not want to see the Clippers because they have both sides. They have defense and they have offense, and they got players that are very hard to stop in Kawhi Leonard. And like you said, the pick and roll with Zubac. Who do you have realistically to stop that out west? Maybe Hartenstein. Maybe he can kind of, back when they had AD. I mean, that's why I wish that the Dallas Mavericks wouldn't have just imploded after that big trade, because I think they would be one of the most dangerous teams right now if they had all their pieces together. But
Kyrie wasn't hurt.
But yeah, the Clippers, I think they just got to stay the course, stay healthy, and they're going to be a team that, like I said, with the Pacers on the East, they're going to be a team none of the other teams want to see.
And here comes the haterade.
Nah, y'all hit most of the points. I'll just say, obviously, like I've said, Harden is a playoff dropper. We can't ignore that. So, what version of Harden are you going to get? And most of the time in the postseason, you get him good for game one, and then he kind of falls off after that. Now, to his defense for last season, he had to share the ball with multiple people. Russ was coming in doing his thing. Paul George had to get some shots. It just wasn't Kawhi before he went down, of course. So you had a lot of people you had to distribute the ball to. Now this team's a little different. I think everybody has a defined role, and like you said, improved tremendously on the wing for their defenders. Derrick Jones Jr., Batum. You got Kawhi doing his thing. You got Ben Simmons who can still slide them puppies. Until his back goes out, then he's back on the bench. But yeah, Harden as a playoff dropper, and then I got to put up Kawhi's injury concern because it's always a factor. And you laughed at me last year, CW, when I called it, and I said Paul George and Kawhi, you can count on one of them to be out come postseason time. And you were like, nah. And lo and behold, boom, you get a Paul George stinker, and you get Kawhi DMPs. So those are my two biggest concerns. But other than that, they look phenomenal. Big Zoo, shout out to Big Zoo. I think he's got 4 20-20 games this season. Phenomenal. But it won't be enough because they got my boys. They got my boys, man.
Here we go.
They aren't enough to pick my boys, man.
You really better start this one off, Laker man.
You already know. But since I'm a realist, I can understand we have some flaws. So I'm gonna go and break them down to you. Just like the Warriors, we have no rim protection. Jackson Hayes, you cool. You're tall. You can jump. Skinny man. I don't see no rim protection at a consistent level from him. And once he goes down, that's it. There goes any chance of rim protection. Luka, as great as he is, he hasn't looked the greatest this year, albeit some games looked phenomenal, other games pretty poor. But he's very turnover prone. He can shoot a lot of ill-advised, deep three-point shots that barely touch the rim. So is he going to get trigger happy and pull out some stinkers? I don't know. But definitely something that would definitely be a detriment to the team if he wants to start chucking 40-footers unconsciously. The three-point shooters around the Lakers' big three, the Finney Smiths, the Gabe Vincents, Connect. Obviously, AR is going to be hitting his shots, or that's what we're going to be looking for. Yeah, Rui as well. Not Bronny. Rui. But, are those guys going to hit those shots? Because that's the world of difference. When they lit up OKC the other night, them boys couldn't miss. Is that going to be the norm? Probably not. But if those guys can come along with that much offense, they'll be one damn team or a tough team to beat. So The last thing I'll go ahead and put up, or last two things. Luka does not get the love from the referees. That's going to lead to some very costly costly ejections, technical fouls, and some no calls. Hate it or love it, if you have a bad relationship with the referees, which he does, which he gets flack for mouthing off to the officials or fans or whatever, that could be a detriment to the team. Um, so we have to keep an eye on that. And obviously LeBron's age. He's getting up there, man. He's the GOAT, no doubt about it. But is he going to have it consistently every game? He can be the second, third option, even first option. Cool. His role can change. Is he going to have it when he is called upon to deliver? Is he going to deliver every time? I don't know. So that's going to be something you have to watch out for because his age is it's getting up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick it to Ron Dog. What you got for my Lakers, man?
All right, so Lakers, of course, point guard position. You guys don't got a tremendous amount of defense. There's some there. There's a lot more than what people give you guys credit for, but there's not a tremendous amount of defense. Like you talk about against the top teams in the West, the Thunder. I've seen people say, "Oh, well, Luka just lets him go right by." Well, Luka can't stay in front of SGA. He has to send him to a defender to help him. Has to. And then, Luka definitely don't give the love. I think Luka doesn't get ejected. I think Lakers go 2-0 against the Thunder. Hot take, but that's just me. But yeah, if the Lakers play their brand of basketball they've been playing, Luka, AR, LeBron, if they put up decent numbers, they're going to be a hard team to beat. And I think they play really sneaky good defense. It's not defense that people notice a lot, but they play like a semi-man zone to where they'll rotate over to help and then force them to make bad decisions if they're gonna make a bad pass or something like that. Lakers have that sneaky defense since they ain't got AD down there no more. So we'll just gotta see what the playoffs is because Lakers haven't been tested during the playoffs since 2020.
What you guys see, Doug?
So yeah, the craziness that was spewed for the Lakers, even my cat Sonny had to come up here. He wanted to say some things, but the Lakers are good. Their weakness is going to be that they have to come with the same defensive intensity every night. If they take one night off, they're done. They can score all the points you want to score, but they're going to face some teams that can do the exact same thing. They can put points up. But when they're at their best is when they're playing intense defense, which we've seen since the trade, since AD's gone. I think they figured out that them playing really tough and just swarming wings and just swarming guys is the way to go for them because they're not a big team, like you said. They don't have a true rim protector. They don't have that kind of toughness when it comes to defense, but they have guys that are quick, that can stay, mostly in front of guys and have quick hands too. Your Jared Vanderbilts, but they can't get in the shootouts. That's going to be the key. They can't get in the shootouts. They're not, they're on when they're on, but they're a team that can be off quickly, and if they're off, it's just lights out for them because yes, Luka can pick up the slack. Yes, sometimes LeBron can, but can they do that against some of these other teams? I don't think so. So it's going to come down to them really playing great basketball. They have a good mind in JJ Redick that can kind of scheme for them, especially offensively. Then they have a great defensive mind in Nate McMillan. So they have good, coaching around them. Can they put it all together? We'll have to see. But to be honest, they're a good team. They're going to be a tough team for any of these teams, top to bottom. But they still have a kryptonite there. And I'm sure we'll get to them here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then let's go ahead and bring their kryptonite, their alleged kryptonite. We got the Denver Nuggets. C-Dub, let's go ahead and since you got them as the kryptonite, what's this kryptonite's kryptonite?
Now, first, if for those people that have been watching this for a while, what was Big Nigel's or who was Big Nigel's least important position on the court? How about remind them, Big Nige.
Is the coach.
Okay, so all these people, Gil, and all these people saying, cheering, the Nuggets lost their coach. Who cares? Does that mean the Nuggets forget how to play basketball? I mean, you still have one of the greatest players of all time on that team who has one of the best basketball IQs in the league. So, they're pretty much their weakness will be, can Jamal Murray get healthy in time to play in the playoffs? That's going to be key. Now, as we know, the Nuggets are best when they have Jamal Murray there. Even last year, he wasn't the Jamal Murray of 2023, but he was still a solid Robin to Jokic's Batman. But without him, they just don't have the firepower. They just don't have what's needed for them to go far. So they need Jamal Murray. If they don't have Jamal Murray, it's a wrap for them. But that's their biggest weakness. They have to have all their key players, and if they don't, they won't go far.
What you got, Ron Dog? And also shout out to King Speech.
What's going on, King Speech?
All right, so Denver. So I'm gonna hit on the coaching situation first to start off.
Go.
He is one of their biggest key parts because you won a championship with this coach. The coach has been their coach for 10 years. That's a bond that most teams don't even have because it's 2 years and then a coach is shipped out. So having a 10-year coach shipped out, that's going to bring a big part because a new coach is going to try to put some of his own things in, something that they're not going to be used to doing. And then Jokic, Jokic is going to give you his triple double, about 30, 10, and 10. Maybe 15 rebounds or maybe 15 assists here and there. Biggest weakness, their role players and other third and fourth options do not score the ball at a consistent rate to help him stay in games. He can score 60 like he did. Still lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because of bad decisions and lack of offense from his other teammates. So
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and touch. I think their biggest weakness is Jamal Murray's hamstrings. I don't know who cursed his hamstrings,
Wow.
but the biggest Achilles heel of this team is them hamstrings, made out of paper towel and tissue paper. What it feel like, but hopefully he get right so he can make his impact on this team because they sorely miss him. So much so that they fired their coach because they've looked so abysmal without him.
Yeah.
But they're not a good 3-point shooting team. They give up the three. Now they are, in terms of percentages, they're like top. I think they're third in the NBA. They just don't shoot a high volume of threes. But they also give up, I think, the 20th most threes in the NBA.
Yeah,
So
right.
they give up the three. They shoot a low percentage and make them, but they give up them threes. Their perimeter defense, pretty putrid at times. The lethargic effort. You even see plays where Nikola Jokic is late for a closeout, and he was just like, you know what? That's Miles Turner. Man, go ahead and shoot it, dog. I'm disgusted with this roster. They don't really have much depth. They don't have a knockdown 3-point shooter. Michael Porter Jr. has been he's been solid this year, but when it comes to postseason, he's damn near unplayable because he's a 6'10" cone. All right, not a very good
like
rebounding guy
out there.
pretty much. And so when you got MPJ's inconsistent offense and lack of defense, it's not a recipe for success for the Denver Nuggets. Not if you don't have a bench, which they don't have, because they don't got a Jeff Green, they don't got the Bruce Browns of the world. They lose the KCPs, which bolstered their 3-point shooting. So they're just lacking. They just need more shooters, more bodies that are capable of doing things besides selling Nikola Jokic. And obviously, with lack of coaching experience, can you be had in a close situation? Now, I told CW, I don't think the coaching position is that important, but
Pretty
Maybe I'm
important.
wrong. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know because I still think Denver's going to be fine without Mike Malone.
I do
But
too.
we'll see.
I guess that's that born after 2000 thinking.
I mean, I guess. I mean, but
But I do want to see how they play without Mike Malone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be a little more loose. Maybe they'll be,
Mhm.
maybe they'll be, because I see where King's Speech says they have no slashers. But,
Yeah,
maybe Aaron Gordon, they'll play him a little differently, have him going to
they
the
need to.
basket.
They need
Um,
to.
so I think this could actually unlock the Denver Nuggets that maybe we didn't get to see under, Mike Malone because the way I feel, I mean, I don't know his coaching style perfectly, but he seems like he runs a tight ship. He wants
Mhm.
people to do, what he's come up with. So maybe a little bit of leeway for some of these guys might go a long way. And a guy
Mhm.
like, Russ, you let him loose.
Yeah.
It could be good. We've seen many times where it's been bad, but
mm,
it could, in certain scenarios, that might be, who you need out there to close you out. But it's gonna be interesting. I think
Yeah.
I think they'll be okay.
I'll just hit on this quick little point. Nigel brought up that their perimeter defense isn't as well. Well, yeah, that's because once a streak comes up, Jokic is sitting at the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
he ain't sliding them puppies.
Oh no, he's not.
No,
And
no.
Doing too
then
much on the other end.
as much grief as you give about Russ, he plays good during the playoffs.
At times, yes,
Mm,
I'd say at
mm.
Last
times.
couple years, he has
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, yeah, I don't think he's been bad. I didn't think he was bad last year.
Mm,
He's
I
not a
think
player he was.
whenever Nigel had him on his squad, they were just looking for someone to blame.
Yeah,
It
he
was
wasn't
either
bad.
Darvinham or Russell Westbrook.
nah. But anyway, I will bring up King's speech points about Peyton Watson. He's solid too, but again, I don't think he's enough. And I will say one of Mike Malone's things was he liked to play like veterans. He didn't really like to put
Mhm.
the young guys in. He preferred to play
Yeah,
the
yeah,
veteran players. And that could have rubbed the front office the wrong way, especially when you got a guy like Peyton Watson who can do some good things for you.
yeah.
But you know, we shall see. Um,
Mhm.
but another team who hasn't garnered a lot of respect, but has definitely put the NBA on blast, got the Houston
Yeah.
Rockets. I'll start with the Rockets. Not
Okay.
too much to unpack there. Um, I don't believe they have a true number one go-to scorer.
Hmm.
We've seen flashes of several different players. The Jalen Greens, the Senguns, Steady Freddie. Um,
Hmm.
you even seen Dylan Brooks kind of get some late touches in the fourth quarter at times. So again, no true go-to guy that you can count on consistently. I think their half-court offense is to be desired. It definitely shows, especially when the game slows down. They're not that good in the half court. Got a lot of raw talent, athletes, guys who can get up and down. But when it comes to running a half court set, a guy like Fred VanVleet's definitely going to be key for them going forward. But again, they're just not the greatest team in the half court. Most series they will play, they won't have the best player on the floor. They're just
Hmm.
a good collection of players, but they don't have that guy on their squad. So again, that's going to be something that's going to work against them. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. And just like the Pistons, they're very young. They have some people with a playoff experience, similar to the Pistons, but again, your key guys don't have hardly any playoff experience, and that's going to bite you in a close game against a team like the Lakers, even a team like the Clippers, Nuggets. They can out execute you at the end of ball games simply because they have more experienced, battle tested players.
Mhm. Well, my take on it, they are young, like you said. They have no experience winning in playoff games. They have like a couple people that do, but as a whole team, as a collective, no. But I will say, I think even as they're not attested, I think that team has good defense. They just haven't shown it against the top tier teams yet. Because we all know, CW pointed out whenever we talked about the Warriors. Steph had 3 points a couple nights ago.
Mhm.
That's because the Rockets were not giving
Mhm.
him room to breathe at all.
Mhm.
If Steph got off one defender, another one picked him up instantly. They were not going to give him room. And then against these other teams, I think, them not having that guy, well, that just means that everyone around them can be a threat. But like you
Mhm.
said, during the playoffs, we have to see it first to believe it. Seeing is believing.
Yep. So I mean, you guys pretty much said it all. But the one thing they do have is an excellent coach, Ime Udoka. He took a young Celtics team to the finals. A lot of that was off defense. They had those young guys, Tatum, Brown, those guys, Marcus Smart, um, great defenders, and they played tough, hard-nosed defense and was able to scheme their way into the finals. So you have that here. Like you said, though, they don't have you don't most of those guys, if you put them on another team, would be a second or third option when it comes to offense. So without them having a bona fide number one option for scoring, it, playoff time is going to be too tough for them because you have to have somebody that can just take over a game when everything when it's looking like you just have no hope. You got to have that one guy that you can put the ball in his hands and produce. They don't have that, so they're not going to go far this year. They just have to, continue to grow, be consistent, and just get one solid piece. Maybe Kevin Durant. Maybe they join the sweepstakes and get Kevin Durant. And they have a bucket, and they have young players that can do all the rest of the stuff that's needed on the court. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know who they give up, but that's another story.
Another team that actually is projected to go far in this postseason. I'm sure there's no surprise. Oklahoma City.
Yep.
Um, for OKC, my main things. So it looks like some teams are starting to pick up on what Minnesota did to them a few weeks ago, kind of throwing some zone at OKC. It allows them to kind of fill those gaps where Shea likes to operate on the floor. So there is some success there. I wouldn't say you could run that zone coverage against them um, in the long term, but definitely spurts you can give them fits, especially with someone like Shea who likes to operate in those tight spaces. The Lou Dort threes, um, are they going to go in? Because teams are going to dare him to shoot those. Again, I'm not the biggest Lou Dort 3-point shooter fan. So those will need to he'll need to make them to make me a believer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think as a collective unit, I don't think they're a great 3-point shooting team. Obviously, they can hit the shots just like any other team on this list. But compared to a team like they just played the Lakers, I think the Lakers are a better 3-point shooting team than them. I think they have more creative 3-point shooters. Um, and so I think that plays against them if they were to have a shootout with a team like LA, because I think they could get outshot. Um, J Dub and Chet, you know, they have not been able to break out of the mold where, in the regular season, they look solid, show you really good spurts, even all-star level games. Postseason, different story. Will those two be there to help Shea take them to the next level? Especially J Dub. He's an all-star this year. He needs to take that step. So they are definitely requiring of him to take that step. And then the bench, one of the best benches in basketball, up there with the Boston Celtics, of course. But again, Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, are they going to come along too? Like again, all these pieces are valid pieces, but again, they have to show up when the lights are the brightest. Not when Shea's already dropped 40 and the game is well and over. They need to show up to help Shea take the pressure off of him so that they can, hopefully capture a championship or at least compete with the Boston Celtics for a championship.
All right. So bad things about OKC. You got SGA scoring, but the other guys they have trouble getting to go to. That's the biggest problem as of late with them. Like what happened not the last meeting, but the meeting before that with the Lakers. whenever SGA had 26, I believe, and then the rest of the team really didn't have nothing for him. And then the Lakers took that dub. And SGA didn't have no free throws that game, and they lost. That's another thing that's not going to work in their favor during the playoffs. Sometimes the refs won't give them the fouls, and SGA is going to get
Mhm.
annoyed with it. It's going to rattle him, and then, sorry, and then we'll see what he does after getting rattled with a couple of no calls. We'll see if he's going to step up to the light or if he's going to falter that game.
Okay. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. First of all, I got to give an apology to the GOAT himself, Michael Jordan, because I said that Shea Gilgeous Alexander was having a Michael Jordan esque season. But this is where that weakness comes in. My man shrinks under pressure. We saw it last year in the playoffs. Saw it their first game against Cleveland, hyped up as one of the biggest games of the season. Shrunk. The NBA Cup Finals shrunk. The game against the Lakers the other night. That was built up as this big meeting. The Lakers and Thunder, potential Western Conference Finals meeting, they get smacked. SGA shrinks under pressure. And for all we talk about, he's the MVP, he's this, that, and the other, he hasn't proven when, like he said, when lights are brightest, that he can step up and be the man. Haven't seen it yet. He's got to prove it, just like you are hard on James Harden when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to big time games. You need to do the same for SGA. He has not proven himself yet. Everybody hating on Jokic that he should not get his fourth MVP. Look at Shea, my man. Anytime he doesn't get the calls he wants, I mean, the OKC Thunder are getting blown out by 30, 40 points, just like they did almost against the Lakers. So,
Yep.
That's their biggest weakness. He's got to show up when it matters. And if he doesn't, they lose. That's just how it goes.
And then I am just going to touch up on this real quick. Only one person in here wants SGA to get it. That's because he's a hater, because Jokic is just playing so great this year. He's playing better than last year. He deserves it. Averaging a triple-double. Come on. 61-point triple-double.
He's center.
Ain't no one has ever done that in the league of basketball. Come on.
A center who is probably one of the slowest players in the league, averaging a triple double, almost unstoppable, has feats that not even Wilt Chamberlain or anyone has ever put on a box score.
Yeah.
And we're talking SGA.
And I am glad that I got you to back me up, because he always tries to get by whenever we are talking. He's like, oh no, I have backup today. Thank you.
Like, y'all can talk all y'all want about SG. Look, you can talk all you want. All I can say is 65-14 to the Nuggets 47.
I mean, he's going to win it, and that's why I said he would when we talked about it. But the numbers don't exactly tell the true story. If the Denver was winning, there would be would anybody even question who was the MVP?
No, not at all.
Well, that's all you need to know.
But winning does play a part in it, so gotta throw that in there as well. But we can be brief on this. I just kind of wanted to get y'all's opinions on the recent firings of like the Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins, and obviously Mike Brown earlier this season. I guess I don't know how to phrase the question, but like, what do you guys think of like the landscape of the NBA? Like, is the NBA sending a message that you got to get it done in like two to three seasons? If not, you're on the hot seat. Do you think it's more internal? With like, are these like small, minute cases where it's more internal and it's just like been building up? Like, what are y'all thoughts on these coaches just getting the boot?
What's going on, Sports Talk?
Well, I think the reason why he got fired, his team has been playing good of late. You know, that's not all his fault, but also he's won a championship, so they are considering him. You know, you guys won one like 2, 3 years ago. You guys need to still be up to get into that level to get another one. That's where firing him and firing the other guy, because if they aren't getting it done, getting back up to that level, they want to bring in some people who can try to get them back there. I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, I just think the other ones I could kind of understand. Mike Brown, I guess a little bit. Taylor Jenkins, I just think maybe they want to go a different direction there. But Mike Malone, here's my, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm going to go there right now and say it's exactly what King Speech said. They had to do this to have a good reason to keep Jokic from another MVP. Because, like he said, there's no way you can win MVP if your coach is fired a couple of days before the playoffs. Like, what teams are dumb enough to fire their coach right before the playoffs? Like, you let him finish out. I mean, that's like the Bucks a couple of years ago firing Budenholzer right
Yeah.
before the playoffs. I mean, why would you do that? Even though they knew they weren't going to finish he wasn't coming back the next season. You still let him finish the playoffs. So, to me, this was a conspiracy theorist tactic to keep Jokic, the greatest center of all time, well, not of all time. Let me stop there, but one of the greatest centers of all time, away from the MVP.
I'll say he's one of the greatest singers of all
Yeah, I
time.
can't say he's the greatest, but he's one of them.
Yes.
Well, I'll send your drug test in the mail, CW. My thought for Mike Malone getting the boot, I just think when you look this season, especially this season, you've seen a lot more of a vocal Nikola Jokic, and not in the right ways. You know, he's more animated on the bench. He's like, you can see he's visibly upset in post games. He's like calling out his teammates, saying that we're not giving the effort. Things of that nature. And that if you got someone who doesn't give two bleeps in Nikola Jokic, he's starting to talk about people's salaries need to be on hold for not performing. The lethargic effort on both sides of the ball. Right, you got your best player, your franchise guy, calling out your team. That has to stem from the coach. And I understand Mike Malone, he's definitely fired up on that bench, but when your voice doesn't hold any weight in the locker rooms, it is time for a change, unfortunately. And I just think this version of the Denver Nuggets just wasn't responding. And again, it might be because he doesn't, gravitate toward the younger players, and their roster was getting younger, right? You're losing your veterans, and your younger players are forced to take on elevated roles like a Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, those guys. Will they make mistakes? Absolutely. But Mike Malone would be irate when they would make the mistakes, when they blew defensive coverages, when they got ate alive by Washington. Both Jokic and Malone were fired up, rightfully so. But if you're the front office and you guys are not going in the same direction, you ain't trading Nikola Jokic. So to make something shake things up, it's got to be Mike Malone by extension. So I just think those two things are culminating with the rest of how this season was going and what I think they already feel in early exit in the postseason. I think it was all coming to a perfect, unfortunate storm to relieve Mike Malone of his job.
I hear everything you said, but Steve Kerr still has a coaching job. That's all I got to say.
And
that's fair.
Jokic is calling people out because, dude, he's trying his best every night, still losing games. He's tired of being the only one putting effort in.
I'm sure his teammates are tired of being the only ones putting effort on defense and watching this big, slow stuff not move around. I'm just saying, you don't want to go there. As great as he is offensively, you got to admit, he's pretty bad on occasion on defense. And I'm not just talking about late coverages. I'm talking about not moving at all. Like, all right, man, go ahead, shoot that corner three, because I ain't getting out there.
He's getting 10 plus rebounds a game, though.
Yeah, because he's daring them to shoot, because he ain't sliding them puppies. He's sinking back on that pick and roll for a reason, because have at it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree there though, because even though defensive rebounds are a measure of defense, um, not the greatest measure, I'm not gonna say that, but it is. They call defensive rebounds for a reason. So if you're leading the league in defensive rebounds, you're doing something right. You're limiting possessions for teams, which is what defense is all about. You want to limit their possessions in a game. So if you're getting 20 rebounds, you're limiting a lot of possessions in that game. Uh, so we got to give him some props there. But yes, his defense, if you look, he'll just wave at you while you go do what you got to do and let you do it.
Ole
Yeah,
defense.
I mean, he does do that. I can't deny that. It's tough to watch sometimes because you're like, I mean, if you just would put a little effort into going to try to stop
Little
that
bit.
man, you might make a difference, but you just, waving him off to go ahead and or tell him to come on and shoot that shot. That's kind of tough to watch. But he's still the MVP.
And then if Mike needs a job, he can always come down to the Spurs. We are getting ready to get Cooper Flag with Wemby, so let's get this started.
You kicking Pop out? I mean, yeah, it's time for Pop to go. It's
Well,
time.
no. Pop has too many health issues. I think he's going to end
Yeah,
up
yeah. I think this is it
retiring.
for him.
Pop can
But Mike,
still
yeah.
Pop can still be a part of the whole
Mhm.
organization, but I think his time for being the head
Yeah,
coach is about done. He's
he needs to
done a great job for them. He's going to be known as the best Spurs coach to ever live.
obviously
Number one wins as a coach. It's going to take people 20
greatest of
plus
all
years to
time.
beat that. Exactly.
But he should do the Brad Stevens thing, go sit in the office, just kind of
Yeah.
run the team. Stevens or Pat Riley, kind of run the team, and then let Mike Malone, because I think Mike Malone is kind of I don't know if he has the same mind as Pop, but he's a mini Pop where he's going to yell at you no matter who you are on the court, and he's going to defend his team no matter what. So I wouldn't mind him showing up and having the silver and black on.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think that's gonna about wrap it up for today's video. We went a little bit longer than anticipated, but it's always good when there's good basketball talk and some gibberish by CW at times. But we're good.
Always right. Always right.
Always right.
I appreciate Ron Dog for pulling up. Appreciate
Thank you.
CW for making a late appearance, but an appearance nonetheless. And I appreciate everybody who pulled up to the stream and weighed in the comments. King Speak, Sports Talk Only. Shout out to those guys and all you guys watching at home. Again, like the video, comment down below what you think a team's weaknesses out east, out west, who you got winning the championship. Do you think some of these weaknesses that the panel has discussed are legit? And if they're not, comment down below and why you disagree. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and till the next one.
Yep. Thank you, guys.